Um, okay, Halvar. So,
Hey, nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too. So to start off, you're the co-founder of this entrepreneurial Norwegian company.
That's right.
So my first question to you is how, like, if you want to describe what you guys do and how you got involved with this, you and your co-founder.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So first and foremost, this is something that is based on my own experience. So when I went to high school, I noticed that, for example, I first started studying for physics and chemistry, and I wanted to be a doctor, and I was looking at different options for that, and like through time, I figured out that chemistry was not for me, and being a doctor was actually not in my range of career choice. And I decided to go see an advisor at my school.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized in Norway that there is very little supply for advisors at the school. I started Googling and trying to figure out, where you can find this information online. And very often it's just like stats online, and you want to find something more personable to be able to help you on this journey to figure out what you want to study and where you want to study. So after high school, actually, me and my co-founder, we went to Bergen, which is a city in Norway, to conduct some research into advising at the Norwegian high schools. And we figured out that there is on average one advisor per approximately 350 students at a high school, which is to us baffling. Advising to high school students should be something that is easily available for everyone. So that is the underlying motivation for starting this, that we wanted to find a service that could help people to find exactly what major they want to study and where they want to study it. So how our service is working is that we have employees at multiple different schools throughout Europe and the US. For example, we have people at Harvard. We have a student at Sciences Po in France. We have people studying engineering in Sweden. How it works is that we have an advisor for a student that comes to us who can talk about how exactly it is to study, engineering in Sweden, or how it is to study nanotechnology at Harvard or something like that. So we try to create this supplement to the advising that is already going on at schools in Norway.
Right. So of these employees that you guys have,
right?
There are different students throughout the world, basically. How did you guys found these employees?
So that's a great question. So first and foremost, the underlying reason for that we have students that already go to universities right now is that we feel that, especially in Europe and Scandinavia, the educational system has changed a lot throughout the last, say, 30, 40 years. And when we conducted the research before going to college, we figured out that the average age of the advisors is approximately, in the range of 40 to 60 years.
Yeah.
And you often find that some of their, not to criticize them, but some of their knowledge could be outdated, or like, for example, feel like computer science or stuff like that. It's hard to tell for them, how it is to study computer science in the US, or how it is to study, for example, a technology field in France. So for us, we through our network of students, people we knew through high school and through clubs and organizations in the Oslo area, we knew people. We started reaching out to people that we trusted and felt comfortable with. We chose these people as to, for example, we had a couple in France. We decided to go with this one guy studying politics at Sciences Po, which is a guy we trust. So we figured out we needed to cover as many majors as possible, and as many schools and regions in the world as possible to be able to cover all the needs that students that come to us might have.
I see. So what's interesting is how it's so different from the US, the whole education and advising system, that it's people, they're not sure what to study. But I was thinking, so before this idea, have you been thinking about various entrepreneurial activities throughout the years?
Yes.
So like, how are you in that mindset?
For sure. So I actually come from an entrepreneurial family. My dad created this company in Norway, originally startup, and it's a medical company focusing on alternative medicine. And he was also, involved in other entrepreneurial companies as he grew up. And in our family, we've always loved to talk about new startups and new ideas. And so I guess it's that free flowing talk going on in our family and heritage. So, I think it was in the start of high school, I started to surround myself with people that I could share those ideas with. And, for me, at least, talking about entrepreneurship, it's not something you sit down on a desk and, okay, for example, you don't say, let's now try and find an idea, entrepreneurship is something you talk with people, you get influences from different people, experiences. So how this actually started was me and one of my better friends from back home. We were sitting on in my cabin and just discussing about advising at Norwegian high schools without even having the idea of making a startup. So I guess that's a mindset I've always had, and something that comes natural, at least to try and solve problems like that. And that's also the reason for me and my co-founder to start at Utdanning-X.
Interesting. So I want to go back to what you mentioned before about the market research you guys did at some of the high schools in Norway.
Right.
Did you ever talk to some of the high school students? And
that's right.
Like to get their ideas of this venture or this
for sure.
service?
So I don't have the exact stats in front of me right now, but we went to schools in Bergen, which is one of the bigger cities in Norway besides Oslo. First we went there to talk to 3 advisors from 3 different schools to try and get a knowledge into how many advisors was available per student at each school. And we got to hear their side as to what kind of services they provide for the students. And many of the things they were saying sounded really good, but we could also tell that a problem coming from the advisors was that they said that even though there was one advisor per 350 students, there was not a problem at all. Like they probably got like 1 or 2 students each week, which is baffling. There was not enough students taking advantage of the advising. So we went to talk to students. We asked questions that was as non-biased as possible. We try to ask questions without leading any answer whatsoever. And most of the rough answers was that people were happy with the advising that was available, but it didn't think it was sufficient. And it was merely 1 out of 10 students who found the advising that they got at the schools sufficient, and they found everything about their studies online through various services. And when we asked them if a service like this would be something they would find profitable, most people said that was something that could be easier for them, like relate to students that are of similar age that are currently studying at that university, studying that same major than someone that studied 30, 40 years ago. And so we based most of our service around those answers from what those students said. And we were also very particular to follow the guidelines as to make an inference from the results of these students to the whole population of Norway. So we needed to get at least 100 students to answer before we could say, okay, this is actually something we can make an inference of.
Right.
So yeah,
that's very interesting. So now, how has this the whole process been? Like, how have the outcomes been? Have they lived up to what you guys thought when you started this?
That's a good question, because people always have different results in mind of what they want out of something. And for us, like from the start, we knew like this is our first official startup that we made this it's in Norwegian it's called a stock company. You officially like put in finances to create it. So this was in that sense the first official one, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't afraid to fail. We wanted to just dive into this and go for it. And of course, there was many obstacles on the way. We did get a lot of attention in Norway. We got a publication in Dagens Næringsliv, which is the leading economic paper in Oslo, and we got a lot of attention through schools, and in that sense you could say it was successful. But our main goal was to help as many high school students in Norway and Scandinavia as possible to reach their goals. And when it comes to the specifics of our service, I believe that was one of the few things you can say fail, or you can say didn't live up to expectations, but we didn't get as many students to universities as we'd hoped to. So we've been looking back at seeing different stuff. Maybe we could invest more in Google ads, for example,
Right.
spending more time and money on this. But we knew going into this that I was a full-time student at University of Delaware, and Herman was right now on exchange student at University of California, Berkeley, and that we were not going to be able to do this full-time after the first 6 months, which has been problematic. You can't be there to take care of every single student. You have to do this by Skype, and the time difference becomes a challenge. So, but at the same time, would you do this over again? I would 100% say yes, because the things you learn through actually doing a startup yourself, you can't compare that to what you read online. So I would definitely say that I would do this over again. Would I do things differently? For sure. But it's definitely a learning curve.
That's very interesting. I think what you say about like how you guys saw on this venture to start it as your first like real startup, and to gain so much knowledge about it that you can't do from, like, you won't gain that from taking a class or studying this.
For sure.
And so you mentioned that it's your first startup, but do you guys have any ideas to participate in other ventures or more in the future?
Yeah. So that's a tricky thing with startup, and that's as I mentioned, that's the one most challenging thing, which I think we underestimated the most in the process. Is that we probably underestimated how much time actually startup takes. We were pretty confident we were going to be able to spin this off in the long run without having a full time at this startup. We thought we could do this part-time as students, but I think in order to 100% succeed with a startup, you need to do it full-time. So for me right now, I'm finishing up my bachelor's degree, and we have a lot of exciting ideas in mind, and people to get involved in the Utdanning X, which is a company. But we have decided, after I finish my bachelor, there are ideas to do this full time, or we have grad school in mind as well. So we'll see what the future holds. But for me, like I said, I'm always going to have that entrepreneurial mindset, and I have multiple ideas right now for other things to start up. But it has to be the right timing, which I think is one of the real important things in entrepreneurship. The timing of when you publish your company, and everything that comes with that.
Interesting. I think you've given me a very good picture of you as an entrepreneur right now. I just wanted to end with, if you have any tips or ideas for someone who's interested in the whole entrepreneurship process and looking for ideas, or might start their first startup, if you have any.
Oh, for sure. So one of the first things I would say is don't be afraid to fail. That's when you read about other entrepreneurs, like, for example, the people that was real successful with big companies, and you go back and you see the research as to what startups they did before, you're 100% of the time going to see that they did multiple startups before and they failed. You're almost never going to be successful on the first try. And I think, you learn by failing. That is a big one for me. So I will definitely encourage people to constantly, be thinking about, being able to do a positive change in your environment, and what you could do, and have that. I think it's important to have that as mindset. The idea why you want to do a startup instead of thinking about the success of a startup and how that could benefit you in the short run. Think why you want to do a startup. Think about the why first, and yeah, know that it's tough. It's going to take a lot of time, and for sure more time than you actually think in the first place. So that would be my advice.
Sounds good. Great. It was great interviewing you, Hallard. Thank you very much for all this.
It was a pleasure speaking to you, Robin. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.